All right, Nick. We got an uphill battle tonight. It's a mount of comeback. um, Orioles lead 10-3. Reds are not looking like they're going to find their way to the top of the scoreboard tonight. I'm not I'm indifferent again a little bit on this game. I don't know. It just feels like one of those weird games, man.
Yeah. Just one of 162. Take a drink every time you hear that tonight.
That's right. I even tweeted that. Just one of 162, man. Let's not act like the world's fallen.
Yeah. Yeah, just not the Reds night. It's been a long time since the Reds got just beat down in a game, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you're obviously very, very wise. And I run this opinion past you. Probably, maybe we wait till the show. I think it's probably smarter to wait for the show because I think it's a relatively interesting thing that obviously people are coming at me pretty hard on Twitter about. I just think that this team, fundamentally, when you put it on paper, over 162 games, if they were to face lefties versus righties, no one in the world is going to be able to convince me that we're better off if a left-handed pitcher's on the mound. It's just there's so many things that are domino effects when a lefty's on the mound that I don't think people even run through oh yeah, you can pull out the OPS and tell me that, oh, look how much better we are. But first of all, the OPS is like 20 points. There's also 3 times the amount of at-bats we have against right-handed pitching versus left-handed pitching. But more importantly, like defensively, Will Benson's a good defender. He doesn't get to play. Joey Votto, in my opinion, if that's who we're going to play at first base, is better than, at least I think he's going to be better than Newman. I lie. Yeah, I don't know. We should talk about it. I'll save some of that for the show. I'm just curious your thoughts on it more importantly, and then just talking through what some of this looks like. I don't know. I mean, it's tough. Casali's tough to watch at times, but I also know he's important behind the plate. But I don't know. Just one of those nights.
Yeah, we'll talk about it. I got defense yuck on there on the ticker. So we'll definitely talk about that. But yeah, just gotta stop these losing streaks. We'll talk about that. I mean, it's just you know,
that's part of it.
I mean, it was bound to. I think we even said, after the first one, let's turn it into a losing streak. I don't think 3 is necessarily like a end of the world losing streak, but 4 or 5 kind of is. So you gotta stop the bleeding and get back to just really playing 500 baseball.
The difficult thing with the Reds starting pitching more than anything is you don't have that stopgap. You don't have that guy that's like, okay, things are going a little south, but we have X coming tomorrow, and he's going to find a way to get us back on track. That's the worst part about where we're at from a starting pitching standpoint. It's like, the old phrase that your momentum is only good as your tomorrow's starter. Tomorrow's starter doesn't look all that great more often than not right now for the Cincinnati Reds.
What does tomorrow?
Tomorrow. And the other thing, the other thing that's wild about that, and I'm all for it, but what's wild about that to me is that, and again, not to harping back to this, and I'm not saying that I'm even right. I'm not trying to. That's not what I'm getting at. But like, it wasn't. But 3 weeks ago, I was told that this guy needed to make sure he had to have plenty of time in the minor leagues, and we didn't want to rush him up here. And now all of a sudden, this guy's a saving effing grace of the starting pitching staff. I don't want to say you can't have it both ways, but like, if we're not going to say that this guy isn't like the guy and he's ready to go, we can't turn around and be like, well, he's going to get us out of this jam. Look at him. He was pitching in Chattanooga 35 days ago.
Kirk Casale. I mean, but Trace, they refined him to the perfect point to where he was able to come up and have success.
That's why this show's the best.
If he had gone one less start, he wouldn't have been ready. He would have came up. He would have shit the bed, Trace.
I love it. No, that's why this show's the best. That's why this show's the best.
I'm kidding, chat. I'm kidding, man.
No,
I'm
we all
taking it tonight.
I'm getting crushed on Twitter. I'm told, and I went hard. I didn't get personal on people, but I you know what, I was up for it. I'm like, you know what, I got to stay up for another 45 minutes. I got to watch this baseball game. It's not fun to watch. I'm just gonna go at people. I'm gonna have fun.
Trace, I think what happened is we were in a good routine where, we were used to just kind of taking it. Like, I was fine. Like, whatever. I take it all the time, and
right,
I'm
you
used
just
to it.
eat it. You
but
keep eating them.
You get into this 12-game win streak, and there's no bad vibes. Like, you're not getting any of it, and you forget. And you're not guarded enough. And then when this game happens, you're like, oh yeah, it's a harsh reality of the Bluebird app and
that's right,
and
Bluebird
the
app,
comments, and you got to go. All right, yep.
I had to get myself out of there. I got to be honest. I was getting myself down deep into the weeds, and I was like, all right, I got to get out of here. I got to close it up. Close up shop, brother. Got to close up shop. Trying to defend yourself.
Hit by pitch.
Doesn't make sense. What?
Hit by pitch.
You must be ahead of me. You're definitely ahead of me, yeah.
You sure we don't need to sync this one tonight?
Nah, I think we're good, brother. We're good on this. I'm not worried about syncing us up.
Orioles fans, man. Andrew, I gotta say, I think the Orioles fans are awesome. I think it's great. Like, there's like not that many there, and they're having a great time. They're having fun. I don't know, man. I kind of like it. What's your thoughts? They've been
I got no problem with them, man. I mean, that's the one thing I've always come up with, or I've come to the conclusion with fan bases, is everybody has crappy fans. Everybody, like almost every fan base has the same types of fans. You're gonna have reasonable fans. You're gonna have nice fans. You're gonna have crappy fans. Outside of Philadelphia, I don't know. Most of the fan bases are relatively the same. Just because some fan bases have a plethora more of them, I think people would just argue they're worse. It's like most of the big market teams, they're like, their fan base is the worst. Could you imagine a Reds game right now if the Reds were winning 10-3 and there was like 30 people in the stands and Mouse Cop was there just screaming whatever he wanted? There'd be people that hated our guts too. Man, when it's not your night, brother. Let's do a show.
Let's do a show.
High drive, left center field, racing back to the wall, Bourgeois. The Reds are National League Central Division champions. In the air, left center field. Did he? He did! He did! Reds win! Reds win! Line to right field. Genius, the first run ever. With 4 home runs in a game. Can you believe it? In the air, down the right field line. Does it have a chance? The Reds have won on a 3-run home run on opening day by Ramon Hernandez. A strike away and out away is Homer Bailey. Ground ball to third. Frazier gloves. Throw to first, and Homer Bailey, for the second time in his major league career, has tossed a no-hitter. Oh, gosh. Oh, are you kidding me? Holy Moses, the second player in major league history to hit 7 home runs in the first 10 games. In the air, and the Reds win it. What a dream beginning to the career of Jay Bruce.
All right, Nick. Tough night for the Redlegs. They lose 10-3 to the Baltimore Orioles. Baltimore, obviously a young and up-and-coming team. They are maybe as expected. I don't know if realistically they got the Reds' best shot tonight. It's something we'll get into, but overall, just a yucky game. Rain delay. It just felt gross, quite frankly, the whole time. And it also felt, Nick, it also felt like the Reds were on the worst end of all of the weather. And I mean, maybe that's just bias because I'm watching the game as a fan, but it felt like every single time that the Reds were on the mound, there was a monsoon. Then all of a sudden the monsoon stops, and then the Orioles go out, they get 3 outs, and then the monsoon comes back once the Reds decide to go out and pitch again. But nonetheless, they lose 10-3, And the phrase of the night, Nick, is it's 1 of 162, as we said.
All right, let's just jump right into the box score recap. Top of the first, Reds playing in Baltimore for the first time since 2014. Reds got a run on a Spencer Steer RBI single. Brandon Williamson got through the first inning, just allowed a walk to Adley Rutschman, one of the most patient hitters in the sport. He looked good overall in the first inning as he pitched a scoreless first. Bottom of the second, Brandon Williamson got 2 quick outs, but then the rain started pouring. There was also some pitch comm issues, just really was an ugly inning, not really a lot of Brandon Williamson's fault. Umps made Brandon Williamson pitch through it. He walked 3 batters, ended up giving a single up. That made it 2-1 Orioles. Top of the third, felt like little or no rain. Reds go 1-2-3. And then in the bottom of the third, the game got delayed for quite a while after Brandon Williamson gave up a leadoff single. Both starting pitchers would end up ending their night there because of the rain delay. Fernando Cruz was the first pitcher for the Reds out of the pen. Pitched okay, not too bad. He just allowed 1 earned run in 2 innings pitch. But a beat-up Cincinnati Reds bullpen turned to Eduardo Salazar and Jake Wong. They 8 innings, but they also gave up 6 runs. Credit to them for not making the Reds go to anyone else, but they pitched probably about how you would expect. Spencer Steer had a 3-hit night and a 2-run home run in the 6th, but it wasn't nearly enough. Reds fall 10-3. Reds have lost 3 straight games after the 12-game win streak. The Brewers won, so the Reds are now a half game back in the NL Central. And the Reds, they're just 1-6 all-time in Baltimore.
Yeah, it's a tough night. It really was. I think it's one of those nights where you just have to go to bed. You wake up tomorrow and if you try to figure out if you felt the same way tomorrow when you wake up as you do tonight. Tonight's one of those games where when you watch it, you do feel like there is just a lot of holes is the word that comes to mind. It's just like, man, are we as good as we think we were about 4 or 5 days ago? I don't know. We're probably somewhere between where we felt 4 or 5 days ago and what we feel right now. It's probably a fair assumption as to where we should be. Let's get into it. Be Will, the rain, the pitch comm. I had mentioned this probably during the rain delay broadcast, which obviously isn't something that's going to go over air. So I'll just reiterate it again for those that are in the chat. My apologies for sounding like a broken record, but I just felt like it started to rain. It was an 0-2 count, and I was watching the game, Nick, and I was just like, Lord, please just let us get this out. And then the next guy would come up, and you're just like, all right, we just need to get out. Like, just hit a pop-up. Let's get out of here. Let's get in the dugout. And the pitch comm stopped working, Nick. We talked about that a little bit. I don't want to crush Casale for this because it's just like one of those things where I don't even know if you ever even think about it. It's just like, oh, my equipment's not working. I need to get it fixed. I would have liked Casale in the moment to be like, you know what? I got a guy throwing pretty well. He's been consistent. He's been in the zone. He's looked good up to this point. It's starting to rain. Let's just get on with it. Let's not spend 2, 3, 4 minutes trying to figure out my pitch comm. I could just put down the old school numbers between the legs, let them know what's coming, and we're going to get on with it and try to get out of this inning. That's not what happened, obviously, and just felt like dominoes started to fall. And next thing you know, you give up a lead. And then they eventually decide to throw it into a rain delay. So, I don't know. Again, just a gross game. If you didn't watch it, it's one of those ones where I wouldn't even worry about going back and watching it. Just rip the tape up and let's move on to the next day. Your overall thoughts on that whole situation?
Outside of Spencer Steer, just go find the Spencer Steer only highlight clip. We'll talk about him in a second. That's all you need to watch tonight. Throw everything else away. Yeah, I thought you made a good point about the pitch comm. I definitely think there's situations like the one tonight where it would have probably been better for, Kirk Casale just to say, hey, we'll figure this out in the inning. Let's not get Williamson too far out of his rhythm. There's rain here. I made the point earlier when we were doing the rain delay. I don't know how maybe if Casale, he knows Brandon Williamson obviously pretty well. They've worked together. He was the first catcher to catch him when he came up. Maybe Casale knows, hey, if we don't get this pitch comm fixed, it's going to mess up Brandon Williamson, just knowing him as a pitcher and how he approaches the game and all that. So I would just give that as a caveat to this, but I do think overall, and maybe this may be one of these things where Hopefully, like a guy like Derek Johnson recognizes this and says, hey guys, next time this happens, let's just forget the pitch comm if it's going to be a big issue. Just try to get through an inning and figure it out in the in between innings. And so this isn't kind of getting us out of rhythm. But you feel for Brandon Williamson tonight. Like, he wasn't terrible.
I thought he was throwing the ball well.
Yeah, he looked great in that first inning. I know some of the spin rates and his velocity was up a little bit. This guy that hadn't walked a guy in his last 2 starts. So you just feel for him, because I felt like he had a chance to really, I think, have a good night tonight. Felt like that when you watched the first inning. And I know it's very easy to say for me right now. But it's honestly how I feel. And I hope that his next start he can come out and, pitch well, because I think I've definitely seen more upside with him than I thought I was going to see. I don't know how much is there. I don't want to jump too far ahead on saying, hey, he's a bona fide starting pitcher. But I think he's a useful pitcher in this organization. He may end up be getting moved to the bullpen, but I think we've seen enough from Brandon Williamson that we go, hey, this guy's not just a minor league pitcher. He can be a major league pitcher in some capacity. Maybe that's becoming the next Alex Young, and that's fine. You need to do that. Resin 4 tonight on Twitter made a great point. So many of these Baltimore relievers that they've turned out to have a pretty nice bullpen is failed starters that they've moved there. And so sometimes you're going to have to do that with some of these guys that the Reds have coming up. Brandon Williamson might be that. But for right now, let's continue to give him a chance to start because, well, number one, we desperately need any starting pitcher we can get. And 2, that would obviously be the maximum use for him going forward.
Yeah. I mean, I don't mean to keep sounding like a broken record, but dude, I get the sentiment that these guys have been failed starters at a big league level and they become relievers, but at literally every reliever in the entire world is a failed starter. There's not really ever been a guy. Maybe you could argue a position player that throws really, really hard is like, hey, let's see if we can't get this guy some innings. That's it. But most pitchers that are pitcher onlys, they're a failed starter at some point. They go to the bullpen. They find themselves a pitch mix, maybe 1 or 2 pitches that's dominant, and they can get away with just getting through 1 or 2 innings. So let's get into a couple things. Spencer Steer is fantastic. I don't want to just gloss over that really fast. I think that as much as we want to make excuses for other guys about where they hit in the lineup, and they'll move in positions messed them up. And, whether they play every day at the same spot or where they're slotted in and they need to be comfortable. This guy has done nothing but absolutely produce week in, week out, be as consistent as you possibly can. And we've moved him all over the place. The same could be said about McClain. Yeah, he played shortstop a lot, but he also has got thrown at second base a handful of times. And I know those are 2 of his natural positions. But I guess my point is like, I just think that there are certain guys that are mentally capable of doing certain things, and then there's some other guys that aren't. And you have to give credit to the guys that are mentally capable and strong enough to do the things that Spencer Steer is doing. I'm not saying it should be as celebrated as somebody's OPS or their fielding percentage or something like that, Nick. But it should be noted how much of a versatile producer Spencer Steer has been. And that's my biggest takeaway from what he's done so far is he's been unbelievable. But he's also been unbelievable no matter what we've done to him. No matter where we've put him, he's consistently produced. And I go back to Eugenio Suarez. You can't say the same about everybody. You know what I'm saying? Like, everyone wanted to say moving positions for Eugenio did him in. Everyone wants to say Senzel moving him positions did him in. Spencer Steer might just be that guy.
Well, the OPS isn't bad either, up to 861. And for some context on Steer at AAA Louisville last year's OPS was 842, and that was over 100 plate appearances. When he was with Minnesota, it was 830 over 232 plate appearances. So what he's doing is just incredible. Him and Matt McClain, they've significantly outperformed in the big leagues what they did for McClain's case in AA last year, for Steer's case mostly in AAA, some in AA. And that's just remarkable. So these guys have been great. Spencer Steer's just playing well right now. It feels like you can put him, He feels like you could put him second in the lineup, third in the lineup, fifth in the lineup, seventh in the lineup. He's going to produce. He's moved all over the field. I think we'll get to that part of it in a second. I don't want to jump too far around, but yeah,
Sure.
I can't say enough good things about Spencer Steer. I'll say he's a team leader, man. He's just like the guy. He's the dude that just is like your steady force in this lineup.
He's the guys that you have to win World Series with. He's the guys that might not be the superstar name. He doesn't do one thing so fantastically well that everybody wants to clamor to him and they're running out and getting Spencer Steer jerseys. But he's the kind of players that you need to win the World Series. That's who you need. Those are the type of players you need. Consistency wins. One thing I want to bring up that's a positive, optimistic outlook, and not that I want to turn this into a show that is, you get smacked 10-3 right upside the face and we sit here and act like everything's great, is this. When I see our rookies come up to the plate, I feel great. I feel like, okay, I'm going to get a good at bat. When I see, and again, he's not a rookie, but when I see another guy that we have some team control with, like a TJ Friedel that comes up to the plate, I think, great. I'm going to get probably a pretty good at bat. The guys that we all want to argue about and get upset about are guys that are not really a part of the future, in my opinion. And that is the most positive, optimistic thing that you can take away from this ball club on a night in, night out basis is that the guys that we have to rely on to win the whole damn thing are the guys that are producing on a consistent level. And that is the most optimistic thing that you could possibly believe in. And that's why I'm not giving up this year on like, oh, let's go for the playoffs and all that. I'm not. But I'm also relatively a realist. I watch these baseball games and I get, people want to yell at me that I'm saying there's holes all over it, but there's holes all over this team sometimes, Nick. Like, you watch the game, and I'm sitting here thinking to myself, are we really going to sit here and act like we're going to be able to go head-to-head in a best-of-5 or a best-of-7 against the Braves? Like, yeah, that's all fun and dandy. We had 3 games in our own ballpark, Nick, and I'm not trying to smush everybody's dreams here, but, watch the games and get a little bit of a feel for how good their players are versus how good our players are. We got some young bucks. We have some babies that are really, really good. But, just watch the Braves play for a week. And then watch the Reds play for a week and think to yourself, okay, realistically, if I take my blinders off, am I going to sit here and scream and yell at the TV every night because Kevin Newman can't catch a ball at first base? And we have Senzel and Steer in the corner outfield right now? I'm sorry not to be negative, but that's just where my mind goes when I watch these games. It's just like, okay, this defense is atrocious. It's not even close to being good.
Yeah, real quick, just on your point about that before we get to the defense. I agree with you. I mean, it feels like the Reds, to win like a series against the Braves, have to almost play perfect baseball. And that's okay. I mean, the Reds have like 7 players in their lineup that haven't even reached arbitration yet on most night. You're supposed to look that way.
I agree.
But what you said about there being holes, these aren't holes that aren't fixable. These are very easily fixable holes. These are young players. You have a lineup that 1 through 9, once you kind of get everyone situated in the right spots, we'll talk about in a second, is going to be a really, really special lineup. One of the best lineups we've ever seen from the Cincinnati Reds. The pitching, yeah, it feels terrible right now, but you also have Hunter Green on the IL. You have Nick Lodolo on the IL. You have Graham Ashcraft not right. And you still have Connor Phillips and Chase Petty all not far behind. And you're going to have a boatload of money to spend this offseason to go get some pitching. So it's not dire. I saw one of the first comments, and whoever said it, I'm not being negative towards you. I appreciate you watching, but how does Nick Kirby have a smile on his face right now? Reds are 41-38, brother. They were 27-51 at this spot last year. You don't have to look at this team, and it's easy to go, yeah, the future of this team's bright. Every single person in the Atlanta Braves, their media, their players, their manager was saying that. Like, they see it. So why don't we? I mean, man, the future is so bright for this team. Are they going to make the playoffs this year? I don't know. Does it matter? Not really. Because what matters is they are developing faster than we ever could have dreamed coming into the season. So much faster. They're so far ahead of schedule. They may not be a year ahead of schedule. They might be a year and a half ahead of schedule right now. And it's going to get better. We'll see how the rest of this year plays out. But, man, I tell you what, 2024 Cincinnati Reds, we still want to see what 2023 does. But 2024, man, it's just going to get better and better and better.
Yeah, I don't know how you can't watch this team and not think to yourself that we've been fortunate. And maybe, like, lucky's the wrong word to use because that would be degrading what Nick Kral's done. And I don't want it to sound like we've gotten lucky because, like, people do that in business sometimes with us. It's like, oh, look how lucky they got. It's like, well, there's like years and years of hard work that went into this. And yeah, we got fortunate, but it's not all luck. So I hate using that term lucky when I say, hey, we got lucky to get Matt McClain. We got lucky to have an Andrew Abbott. We got lucky to have Ellie De La Cruz. We got lucky that we have Spencer Steer. We got lucky that Christian Encarnacion Strand is doing things that we probably never thought that he would do at the AAA level. We feel lucky that we have Marty, who's now getting promoted to AAA. Those are all things that Kral has done, and maybe he's not done everything perfectly. Obviously, he's human. But when you watch this team, you quickly realize that there is a core, there's a foundational piece to this team that isn't going anywhere. And they look like major league players already, and they just got here. So I see there was a comment that was made. I'll try to find it here, but someone said something along the lines that they didn't think the defense is all that bad. The pitching staff needs to throw strikes. I agree. The pitching staff does need to throw strikes. But I guess my main point is I don't watch the games as like, oh, they won tonight or didn't win tonight. I almost like look at them and I think to myself, what does this team need to look like, Nick, to have a sincere opportunity to win in the playoffs? And when I say win in the playoffs, like be one of the top level teams. And defense, in my opinion, always is a part of that. And I look at this team right now, and tonight especially, and I just think to myself that this isn't really a lineup and or team defensively that's going to be able to get the job done. The good news is this isn't a part of the future. A lot of those guys aren't a part of the future, so I'm not overly upset about it, Nick. But I would like for us at some point to just at least admit to ourselves that when there's a left-handed pitcher throwing, and we get into this now and we get into it hinders us in a multitude of areas. That's what my main point was tonight. And obviously it got taken a little bit of the wrong way, and I'm not going to argue with the masses on trying to explain what I meant forever. But it's just like one of those things where Will Benson in the outfield matters. Stuart Fairchild, I wish he never got called down because Stuart Fairchild in the outfield makes a difference. He runs down a ball that other guys can't get to, So I don't know, your overall thoughts on just kind of that whole situation and what you do about it, I guess, if anything.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the defense, though, right now, I think we got to remember there's a lot of players playing out of position right now just because of where the Reds are at this moment. And I'm going to say something, and I hope it doesn't get taken out of context, but I'm sure it will. Joey Votto is not going to be here next year. Joey Votto is taking the first base spot right now, which is his. He deserves it. He's played incredible, but he's not going to be here. So Spencer Steer's probably not going to be in left field. He's going to be at first base. So that takes a while, that spot. And if you're platooning, you're putting Stuart Fairchild out there. That's already a drastic improvement, right? Just those two players swapping. I think we all know, and I've said it for a long time, the best defensive alignment in the infield is going to be Noelvi Marte at third base, Ellie De La Cruz at shortstop, and Matt McClain at second base. I'm confident Nick Krall is going to get there. I'm not going on the rabbit hole of what he needs to do to get there, but it's going to happen. And once you do just those two things, all of a sudden your defense looks a hell of a lot better, right? So it's not like they're that far away, but right now, because Joey Votto is still a part of this team and he deserves to be a part of this team, Spencer Steer is playing in left field out of necessity. And a lot of these things, and Tyler Stevenson as well, next year, he's not going to be allowed to DH this much, nor should he. This is a temporary thing. So that's a spot you're moving one of your poorer defenders to the DH spot. So the defense, it's not a long-term problem. It just unfortunately the way the roster is right now, and I think some of this will get cleared up at the trade deadline. I don't think it's necessarily going to be through the end of the year. It's just kind of right now to get the best lineup, you unfortunately have to sacrifice some defense at the moment, and that's not a good long-term strategy, But in the short term, I don't think it's the end of the world.
Yeah, and I just want to add something that I think is, I hope people don't take this the wrong way, but you have to get production out of the DH spot. The DH spot is such a luxury to have. You can hide somebody that's absolutely disgusting defensively, horrible defensively, god-awful defensively, but can produce at the plate, and you can put him at the DH role. We've not done that this year, and that's fine because we're in a weird spot, Nick. I get it. But CES being a DH is kind of a big deal. Putting Spencer Steer back at first base, kind of a big deal. You can argue up and down, say whatever you want, but the fact of the matter is right now, you can say there's as big of a hole in the starting pitching, and there is. By God, there is. But there's just as big of a hole at the DH. There's just as big as one. The guys that take up that DH spot on any given night are league average hitters or below league average hitters. Explain that one. Tell me how we're supposed to make the playoffs and make a run in the playoffs when we have a DH spot right now that is less than league average more times than not when they walk up to the plate.
It just kind of goes.
Yeah, it is what it is.
Well, it just goes back to we're in a weird spot because we're trying to develop Tyler Stevenson while limiting him catching this year, and the Reds are stuck in. And I'm sure. I would imagine there's debates going on in the Reds front office. There was a commercial, one of those little commercials they play in between innings about the minor leagues, and Nick Kroll was talking about how they have feisty debates in their front office. I bet there's a debate about Tyler Stevenson. Should we just only have him catch? Should we stick to our plan? I bet there's a lot of contention, and I don't necessarily think there's a completely right or completely wrong answer with that, because his development, as I've said many times, is still important this year. But you're also kind of in the middle of a playoff race now, and you're really kind of stuck in a weird spot with him. So, but that's not going to last. That's a this year problem. That's a this year problem.
It is until it isn't, though. I think them DFA and Will Myers was a step towards something they've never done before, Nick. I think it was a clear line of saying, you know what, if you're not good enough or you're not producing, even though we feel like we probably should have, from a monetary standpoint, a value standpoint, how much money we spent on this specific thing, we're not going to give up on it because, it's almost like the bad poker player that has all their chips in the middle with a bad hand, and they just keep shoving more chips in the middle because they feel like they have to see the hand through. For the first time in a long time, I feel like the Cincinnati Reds front office decided they were going to fold when they had a bad hand, and they said the hell with it. Even if it doesn't really theoretically make sense of what we planned on doing, we're getting rid of it now because it's time to cut our losses. I like to think that they'll continue to do that. And the truth is, if Tyler Stevenson is not capable of catching the ball, which is important when you're a catcher, and he's not able to hit at above average clip, if you're going to put him in the DH spot, then something's going to have to happen. I'd like to think that either one of two things can happen, Nick. He can go down to lower levels, which is a wild thing to say. I'm not suggesting that he's going to live there, but I'd like to see him work on every single day catch. He needs to be a defensive catcher every single day if what he's going to do at the plate is ever going to play at the big league level. I don't think that's crazy to say. If he's going to hit the way he's hitting this year, he has to catch. It's the only spot that you can possibly play in Major League Baseball if you hit the way that Tyler Stevenson's hitting. So you can yell at me. Chris can tell me it's a clown take. You can say whatever you want, man. But you can go down to AAA and work on things and come back and be a better player. Because right now, if Tyler Stevenson can't come back and be a better player catching the actual baseball, which is an important thing when you're the catcher, then you can't play catcher in the major leagues. Can't do it. And it's nothing against Tyler. I think he's a great guy. I'm not trying to crush him. No one's trying to crush him. I'm just saying, if you're not going to trade him, he can't DH. He has to learn how to catch. And if you don't want to catch him right now because he's so damn bad defensively, you can't hide him out there, then you just have to send him down and let him work on it.
I can't even believe I'm honestly gonna kind of agree with you. I can't believe how far Tyler Stevenson's fallen off the map, and I don't think it's necessarily even all him. He's coming off a tough injury, but I can't believe how far we've fallen off of him from a couple months ago. But if you did send Tyler Stevenson down, it solves a lot of problems in the immediate. You could call Christian Encarnacion Strand up. There's a spot for him. And I stand firm on, when I look at how many players there are, it's really hard to see how Christian Encarnacion fits on this team, and everyone wants to see get enough playing time gets enough playing time. But you could send him down, and you could get Christian Encarnacion Strand into the lineup every day. Hard to see how in the immediate that's not a better team, right?
Yeah.
I don't, but I've also said a million times, I think Tyler Stevenson's development is important. So if you're sending him down, you can get him as many at bats as you want. He can play, he can DH, he can do whatever in AAA. So, man, these are some hard decisions in the middle of a season where you have a winning record, you're a half game out of first place, you're so far ahead of schedule.
Right.
They're goodish problems to have, but they're tough decisions, because Tyler Stevenson, again, when I was at Reds Fest this past off, Tyler Stevenson was like the dude. This was like the Ellie De La Cruz almost. I mean, I know Ellie was there and he had his own hype, but like Tyler Stevenson was the guy, him in India. And it would be really hard to look him in the eye. And I know people might scoff at it. It'd be really hard to say, hey, Tyler, we're sending you down to AAA. That would be really hard. So,
really quickly, people are trying to say you should DFA Casale before you send Tyler down. Listen, this isn't about who's the better player. This has nothing. This has nothing. Listen to me. This has nothing to do with the fact that Tyler Stevens is not better than Casale. If you had to pick at a playground right now and you said, "Hey, this is the dynasty mode. Who do you want, Stevenson or Casale?" Of course, everyone's going to pick Stevenson. The point is that in order for him to be a part of the future for this franchise, he has to catch. He's got to catch. He can't catch. The only way to learn how to catch or get better at catching is to actually do it every single day. If you think that this team right now wants to put him behind the plate on every single night for a team that's trying to fight for the playoffs, you're out of your mind. They're trying everything they can right now to get him at bats, to try to get him to get back on track, and they just can't do it because he's struggling, and he's struggling bad. So if you can't catch at an average level, or hell, even semi-below average level, and you're hitting the way that he's hitting right now, you're not a Major League Baseball player. What you did last year, what you did 2 years ago, what you did 3 years ago, it doesn't matter. It just doesn't. So just this idea, just because you've seen Tyler Stevenson play for 2 or 3 years and you think to yourself, oh man, he's one of the future, he's one of the best players. I agree, he was. But if you watch him and you use your eyes, it's not hard to see that he's not a good defensive catcher, and it's not even close to being good defensively. So the only way, and again, Nick, how many times have I had to say this on this show? It's not a death sentence getting sent down to AAA. It's just not. Get it out of your head. Get it out of your head. Just because you go to AAA doesn't mean it's all over. It doesn't. Go ask TJ Friedel. All right, I need to calm down. It's one of 162. And Will Benson. Hell, yeah, good point. Will Benson.
Will Benson might be even a better point than TJ Friedel, the way like he came back from where he was. But yeah, these are tough conversations. But I think they're important conversations. I don't know who else is having them. But
yeah, what's the point of having a show every night if you're not going to talk about the things that seem evident? I mean, if you got a Stevenson jersey and you're pissed off because he's one of your favorite players, I get it. I mean, I actually do understand that. But if you watch these games and you think to yourself for a half a second that guy can catch at the major league level, I don't know what to tell you.
I love Tyler Stevenson. His development is important. It is important to this team. Yeah.
We'll see. And listen, Tyler Stevenson, I would look like, if we were doing this show for more than just this year, I'm telling you right now, straight up, I'm admitting to something. 2 years ago, as soon as I seen Tyler Stevenson come up in the major leagues and I seen him hit, I immediately thought that dude is going to be an absolute stud. He's going to have a long career. He's an incredible hitter. He might not have all the pop, but his play discipline and the fact that he just drives the ball the other way he's going to have a great career. And I've been a little bit wrong this year about that. So the idea that I just don't like Stevenson's, why? I mean, that's just an idiotic take. I'm just looking at it and I'm taking it at face value. And I'd rather Tyler Stevenson catch every day, Nick, with a little less stress and maybe him get back on track and start to do just something clicks than to sit out here and run him out of DH and then catch him every 4 or 5 days or whatever he ends up catching.
And I know I've said this before, but I also think it's important to point out that some of the things that have happened with Tyler Stevenson's develop is not his fault. Remember, his time to come towards the big leagues was in 2020, which obviously in the world was a difficult year. He played 6 games that year. He was kind of at the alternate site. He was pretty much just used as a pinch hitter. He basically lost an important year of development. And as a catcher, that's a huge deal. And then in 2021, they had him up on the team the whole year, but you still had Tucker Barnhart. So he only caught 78 games behind the plate. He pinch hit a ton, played some at first base. And then last year, the year he was supposed to finally take over as the full-time catcher, it was his job. They moved Tucker Barnhart out to get it. The guy had a brutal injury and only played 50 games. So his development has really kind of just been this up and down roller coaster to this point. So I still think there's time for him to develop and continue to get better. He's only 26, which for a catcher, I mean, it takes a lot of time and a lot of reps to continue to improve. So I'm with you. I despise the idea of sitting him down to AAA because it kind of hurts me. It feels dirty. But
why does it feel that way though?
Just because of where he was a couple months ago. I'm sure it's me. It's me, not anything else. It's just, I don't know. It hurts in a way. It's almost like you're, I don't know. It's just, I feel bad.
It's the stigma around AAA.
It is. But I would feel bad for him. It's a little different than I think sending Will Benson back down as opposed to a guy that hasn't been in the minor league since 2019. I mean, that's a long time for him to come up, and then that's where I feel for him more than, anything else. Sometimes you have to make tough moves. Stuart Fairchild getting sent down to AAA was a tough move.
You know what it feels like a little bit for some people probably? It's like this year when I watched my son, he's 10 years old, he had to face 12-year-olds, he's in Little League. And I love my son, obviously, as most parents do. But I can see it. I watch the game and I think my son's just a little overmatched. He cannot hit the fastballs that these 12-year-olds are throwing. He's just not strong enough yet. He's not good enough yet. If you're watching as your favorite player is Tyler Stevenson right now, I bet it feels a little bit that way at times where it's like but deep down you think you're like, you know what, next at bat he's gonna figure it out, and it's like it's just not happening right now. We'll see. I hope he turns it around, man. But there's nothing. It's almost like this, Nick. The scary part about all this is this. For Tyler Stevenson, it's really hard to get better defensively. Most guys in their career aren't going to significantly get better defensively. There are guys that can get a little bit better, I think, at the plate. Like that can fluctuate a good amount. I just think that, and I mean, there's guys in the chat that don't agree with me. I mean, Roger says catching defensively is irrelevant. I mean, that's a wild take, man. But I mean, if that's what you think, I'm not going to argue with you. I just think that I think that defense kind of matters.
Yeah, definitely catcher defense, matters quite a bit. There's another option here. Is the old Phantom IL in a 20-day rehab assignment.
Yeah, no, yeah.
Maybe it doesn't feel as bad. I mean, that's a way to do this without.
Nick Krall's up there, and he's up there in the captain's chair. He's up there in the bird's seat or whatever they call it. And he's just thinking to himself, man, I just need Stevenson to hit one off the foot. Not going to get hurt, but we just need to get him down there. Let him spend about 10, 15 days down there, and let's get him back. Give him a
I'm
reason.
fine. I swear I'm fine. No. You need to take 10 days, ice the crap out of that bad boy.
Doesn't that feel like how Nick Kroll handles like half his roster decisions? He legitimately finds somebody to get hurt every week. We were like, all right, who are they going to DFA? Who are the Reds going to cut? Who are they going to send down? And it's like 15-day DL, some random person. It's like next thing you know, you got Will Myers has got COVID. It's like, what?
I think they did like 15 times with Heath Hembry to keep him on the roster as long as they could.
We'll see, but this is a fun show. By the way, the fact that there's this many people in here watching and having some fun with us in the midnight hours is hilarious. The fact that I feel like if you're in the show right now, I just want to let you know on a little inside secret, there's going to be a lot of people that I think are going to want the tickets to go to this July 17th game, Reds night. If you're listening to this podcast this late and or you're watching this show this late into the show, you should know this. This is like insider tipping. I'm going to open up the store on Friday, probably around like 6:00 or so, a little bit early. So just so you know, I mean, I'm not going to stop you from getting the merch and getting the tickets. So that's just food for thought. You take that for however you wish. But yeah, you deserve. I feel like if you're listening to this show right now, Nick, they deserve to know that.
These are the champs.
Just saying. Who's Your Daddy's coming in from Chi-Town. I can't wait to say Who's Your Daddy.
I'll be in Cincinnati this weekend, folks. I'll be at the game on Sunday, hopefully. Lord willing.
You need to shake them haters off too while you're at it.
Yeah. I will be shaking them haters off. Saturday night, T-Swift. Let's go. It's going to be a fun weekend. I'm excited.
You should. What's up next exactly? We got more baseball games to be played?
Yeah, we still play some baseball games. Tomorrow is a new day. And you know what, Trace? This is really glass half full, but you know what? I'm here for it. You know I am. I tell you what would have really sucked today, Trace, is if the Reds had lost like 6-5 and they burned through their entire bullpen. But you know what? They only pitched Fernando Cruz, who I love, Eduardo Salazar, and the guy that's getting sent right back down to AAA, probably with Salazar. They'll probably be on the same plane tomorrow. So we're going to have a fresh-ish Diaz, a very fresh Lucas Sims, a fresh-ish Jabot, and a freshest Farmer with Andrew Abbott on the mound. Andrew Abbott, obviously, he's been great. I don't need to tell you that if you're watching or listening to this. My only nugget about Andrew Abbott, this is a guy that was born in Lynchburg, Virginia, played high school baseball in South Boston, Virginia, and college baseball at Virginia University in Charlottesville. If you're not familiar with that area, not very far from Baltimore, so maybe a little bit of extra juice for Andrew tomorrow. But he's going to have a tough test. Tyler Wells leads Major League Baseball, Trace, in WHIP, 0.89. He's got a 3.04 ERA and 4 starts in June. He's a guy, 56% of his fastball strikeouts are located outside of the zone, the second highest in baseball. So Reds that are typically patient need to be patient tomorrow against the right-hander, Tyler Wells. But looking forward to this game. I think this will be a good, this is the best pitching matchup by far of the series. So looking forward to this. Should be fun.
Joey Votto confirmed having at least 1.5 walks tomorrow. Maybe two, maybe at least one for sure. Listen, I don't know how else to say this. The fact that you guys watch this show this late is ridiculous. I appreciate you for it. We like to have a good time. We like to have reasonable conversations. And whether you like our takes or not, I can promise you they're rooted in a little bit of elementary thought. Believe it or not, we actually try to think these things through a little bit before we say them aloud. I will not hang on this whole left-handed pitching thing. I'm going to let it sit and marinate for a little while, see if my overall opinion stays the same. But I usually like when Fraley plays. I usually like when Will Benson's in the outfield. And I usually like when Joey Votto, like it or not, is playing over, I don't know, guys like Nick Senzel and Kevin Newman. But that's me. Maybe you don't feel that way, and that's okay because we can disagree. And that's how this world exists. It's a beautiful thing.
Well, Trace, I have some good news for you. The next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pitchers are right-handed starters the Reds are lined up against. So you will get your wish, my friend.
And I love that. I just wanted to make a quick note so everybody knows if I was a team, I'd make sure that I had a couple left-handed arms in the bullpen because I'd be trying to get those guys out of the game as fast as I could if I went to the bullpen. Simple as that. I'd say, you know what? If you want to pinch hit, you want to put Kevin Newman in over Jake Fraley, be my guest. You know why? Because he might just come up in the 9th inning with runners on 1st and 3rd with 1 out, and he might just hit into a double play. Just maybe.
Come on, we can't go back to
with that thought.
We came so
I love
far.
all of you. I love all of you. And I just want to say thank you for watching our shows. Remember, you can go download, rate, and review our podcast. You like Off the Bench, you can watch that tomorrow from 10 to noon. I think Paulie Fritzner's going to be in the house tomorrow. I believe that's the case. So if that is the case, you'll be in for a treat. But as always, do us a favor. Go leave us a review on the, I don't know what you want to call them. I guess the podcast platform. Spotify, Apple, all of them. I don't know any more of them outside of those two, so it is what it is. But you know what? The most important thing is that I say on each and every show is one, that I love you. Whether you agree with me or not, doesn't matter. Still love you. And the second thing is that you're a Reds fan. And although tonight might not feel this way, it doesn't matter. Just like being an American. It's not always the best to be an American every single day, but God bless America over the course of your life. You're damn right you're proud to be an American, and you should be proud to be a Reds fan. So from my love to yours, go Reds. We'll see you tomorrow.